Hey guys, Nick Piette here, and welcome to another episode of Craft Beer and Data. Obviously, Nick Piette, Chief Evangelist at Talend.
Mark Balkenende, Director of Technical Product Marketing here at Talend.
And we're here in sunny Philadelphia. Right? I know our last episode we were in Director Brewery down in Denver. The second stop in our, I like to call it our Thinking While Drinking tour. I know we're not really allowed to call it that. But yeah, so we're here in Philadelphia. We got Christian, one of the brewers here at the Philadelphia Brewing Company. So thank you for taking time.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta say, this is just an amazing facility. Definitely coming in and just seeing like kind of where we're running the event this evening. It's kind of amazing. But it actually has some roots kind of in the local area. So, as much as we like to talk about the brewery, I mean, just given the type of facility you guys have, I'd also love to talk about that. So how is this not only a facility, but also the Philadelphia Brewing Company really connected to this area?
Well, we do a lot for the city. I mean, for this exact area. We'll host a lot of events here for, we'll do like the spring cleanup for everybody. There's also like the SBCA comes around here and we do what's called Catter Day. It's every, I think it's every first Saturday of the month.
Yeah, I saw the sign for kittens that you had down there.
So. Oh yeah. Yeah, kittens are a big part of this brewery right now, especially. So.
That's pretty awesome. No,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I remember looking at your website, just the number of different events and stuff. It looked like you guys were really connected. Now, the building, I mean, as far as I can tell, just doing the research, kind of getting ready, this has been around since what, 1885?
1885, yeah. And it was a brewery. It's always, well, I think it was an empty warehouse for for a number of years, but it's quite obviously a brewery, and
it was designed to be a brewery,
right?
Which is the unique part of it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there are tons of like bricked up underground tunnels that lead to nowhere. I don't know.
Bowling alleys where you see them throw that down.
We went through Prohibition too, so he was telling us that during Prohibition that they were making soda, basically.
Soda,
The room downstairs was the peacock drinks. Yeah. So very, very long history. And then when did it become Philadelphia Brewing again?
It was about 2001?
It was about like 16 years ago. Yeah, 16, 17 years ago.
No, that's awesome. And you guys came in here and you started, which kind of brings us into, so what started Philadelphia Brewing Company? What was it about the beer that you guys realized, yeah, this is something unique and we really want to start producing this?
Well, I think the allure behind it is just, again, I've only been working here for about 2 years,
right.
So I don't really know exactly how they got their start, but I think they realized that they had something good, and then and the names behind it really go with the neighborhood. So Kensington, Kensinger, like, and then there's Newbold, of course, and then Walt Whitman with a Walt Whit. PPA is like the logo is referencing the railroad workers. So
Interesting.
Yeah, so definitely it's got the history behind it. Now, I always joke when we're talking brewers that asking this next question is kind of like picking your favorite kid. But for the brewers that are on tap, which one's your favorite?
I'd have to say the Newbold, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got a nice, robust flavor to it.
Nice.
Nice hoppy notes in there.
Okay.
We once asked a brewer in Boulder, actually, we were out in Boulder, Colorado, and he said, "Whatever I just tapped is my favorite."
Well, usually, I think
whatever the freshest is.
Yeah, that's also true. But I think usually when we have a lot of rotating seasonals, whichever is the last one to come out, I would say is the favorite. So
now, what's the current seasonal that you guys are working with right now?
Well, we have Kilty Pleasure in the tank, which is a Scotch ale. Yeah, so it's got some peated malt in there. Actually, by mistake, we put in some French oak spirals, but that's only going to help now. Yeah, it's it really does.
That's only a mistake if it doesn't turn out. Yeah, so otherwise intended. No, that's cool. So, I mean, specifically for you, like, what was it that drove you to want to be a brewer?
I think it was. It's gonna sound bizarre, but it was just I was kind of in the right place at the right time. I mean, it sounds like a dream job, like coming in and like working at a brewery. So I started out in the packaging department, and then somewhere along the line, I just kept in line for next step up.
Oh, that's
nice.
awesome.
And I've been fortunate enough ever since. So
Yeah, no, this place is just not only the beers, the history, the outreach you guys have for the community. It's a great place. And finally, I think it's always interesting to hear as well. When we're working, we never stop coding, right? It's it's time to leave, go to the office, got to go home. I get back there and I'll code some more. For you guys as brewers, do you take your work home with you?
Well, the stress, you try not to, but in other terms, like creative wise, I think since I live so close to here, a lot of what I can take home with me is stuff that I've been working on here.
Okay.
So you can, like, I've lately just been doing like bottle conditioning in the brew house, and then every once in a while just doing that. Never bringing it home really, unless it's like around Christmas time or something. I'll hand it off to somebody.
You don't brew beer at home then? You do enough here?
No, I do plenty here.
Well, it actually kind of feeds us into kind of that last question. So, how and what goes on when you guys decide, like, hey, this is like you mentioned, the new Scotch Ale that you guys are putting out. Like, what was the decision behind kind of deciding that was going to be the next seasonal?
You mean like in terms of like for each new one?
Yeah. So what's the thought process behind, like?
I think we're just trying to do something that is either not done or something that we haven't done in a while. I guess our last seasonal that we did, which was our last one-off, I should say, which was the Euthanasia, which was a Japanese hopped ale, like a rice base, and that one was a very unique beer for us. It was a double IPA. And so we just wanted to do.
Boy, that's calling my name.
Yeah, it's like I'm not sure if we have we did a small batch of that. We might not have anything left.
Oh, you're killing me, Smalls. No, no, I mean, but it's always fascinating to see just like what the creative juices are deciding. Like, all right, I mean, we've been to some breweries where they're just like, we just throw a bunch of stuff together and see what happens. We'll make a small batch, we'll make a big batch, and
it somehow comes together like that too. So I mean,
what started off as a stew turns into a great
Right. So we're constantly changing like the hop bill for our one seasonal, the Harvest from the Hood.
Okay.
So Dan, the head brewer, and I got together and we were just researching hops and like what was going to go inside, and we got lucky. It was a very successful brew. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Sometimes luck plays into everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, thank you for taking the time to
talk with us. Of course.
Again, we're here at the Philadelphia Brewing Company, obviously in Philadelphia. Really excited to be here. For those of you that are coming tonight, we're really excited to see you too. Again, thank you so much, and we'll come back with you in a minute. It was a great conversation with Christian here at Philadelphia Brewing Company. Again, my name is Nick.
I'm Mark.
Right, and we're here for Craft Beer and Data. So, last episode, we talked about some of the predictions that we had that were going to come out in this year, right? And one of the ones that had a lot of some feedback, some follow-up, was around kind of the concept of an information gateway, or what is an information broker, and how does that kind of work, right? How can companies really start monetizing their data? We often hear too many times that data is the new oil. And so obviously being here in Philadelphia,
I hate that saying.
I know. What was just fortunate for us is obviously we have a great partner that's here in Philadelphia, and so we thought, hey, why don't we bring you on and talk about it? So Dave, thank you for being on the show. If you could take a couple minutes to just kind of explain who you are, what's going on with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick. Mark, for having me. Dave Taddy, CEO and founder of Integress. We're a local company here in Philadelphia, and we help companies monetize their data.
And we found the right guy to talk about, right? I'm so glad. No, so I mean, just to kind of kick this off, like, how do you define, like, what is data monetization?
Hey, wait, before we start.
Yes.
Before we start, we are going to mention one thing. So Nick and I agreed we're going to retire the big data chug. We're going to let it go. I won, clearly.
You did.
By a long shot. So thank you, Nick. Cheers. And I'll actually cheers you this time.
Right. It's amazing how you know how to cheers now.
For those that have maybe seen the bloopers of our 2018 commercial, you would know why that's funny. But anyway, so let's get back to the monetization.
Yes. I take defeat. So yes, data monetization.
So what is data monetization?
Right. What is
Absolutely. So you led off by talking about the information broker, and traditionally people think of data monetization as let's get our data and sell it.
Right.
So nowadays that's evolved a little bit to really talk about how do we extract value from our data. So something a little bit more generic.
Right.
Whether that's internal or external. So obviously there's many internally focused projects that can be done around data management and analytics to monetize that data, and obviously new external sources of monetization as well.
So when you say internal, are you talking about they're selling the data to other departments internally, or what do you mean by internally monetizing?
Sure. So it goes back to extracting that value from the data. So usually that is tied to business goals, business outcomes, at the executive level, and that's one of our differentiators in the marketplace. We really focus on that data strategy first, and then help on the execution side. And usually that data strategy is aligned with the business goals.
Makes sense.
And on the internal focused monetization projects, it's usually about increasing revenues, improving profitability, or boosting effectiveness.
Yeah, that makes
effectiveness
sense.
of like marketing campaigns, for example.
That would be one example.
I think we talked about early retention as well, maybe of customers.
Acquisition, retention. We're seeing that across a large swath of our customers as well. Across industries as well, where that is becoming.
Sorry.
Finished. Becoming more and more critical. Where they're really understanding the value that can be brought by data.
So basically, they're taking better advantage of data that they had, or maybe they didn't realize they had to improve those internal goals, right?
Exactly. If you look at the progression of data over the last 5 or 10 years, everyone was under the mindset, I need to just collect all my data. But no one really had a goal for it. They didn't really know why they were collecting it. But
It'd be the first time we've heard that.
Right? They knew that they had to collect it.
Yeah.
So first thing that comes to mind is swamp, but we won't go there.
Exactly. So now companies are seeing success with other companies, and now they're trying to emulate that.
Right.
Where they're combining both internal and external sensory nodes, I'll call it, or sources of information.
No, that's interesting. I mean, we often hear time and time again the need for organizations to be less cost center, more revenue generating. So it definitely aligns with what you're seeing too. And we kind of touched on a little bit some of the benefits, but really for an organization to really take advantage of it, what would be one of the most valuable benefits? I know it's going to be different across the board, but holistically, what would you see as kind of the primary benefit of doing this kind of?
Yeah, it's really going to vary by industry and vary by company. I'll point out some good examples that we're seeing.
Absolutely.
Like I was mentioning, Mark. To Mark, we're seeing a lot in the marketing analytics space. So whether that's mining their internal data to get a more complete picture of your customer,
right, to
either effectively segment them and target them more effectively, and that'll help with acquisition.
Yep.
Or on the flip side, the attrition. As the those customers leave. How do we know who's going to leave, and what we might do to better target them to entice them to stay. That's one example. Other examples have to do with MDM, or master data management. So we're seeing a lot more of those projects.
Calm down,
I know about him.
Yeah, I know. Calm down.
Calm down.
So those are some very interesting projects.
Forgot to tell you the keywords, like the secret words for Mark.
Yes. That's why it's called data, because I like talking about all kinds of data. Master data.
Calm down, Mark.
Sorry, Nick.
It's okay, buddy.
Carry on.
Absolutely.
We'll release you from that cage later.
So some of those projects are very interesting. We're with one of our clients, for instance, a supply chain management company. They're using it for both internal and external focuses. So internal, they have, as you can imagine.
Yeah, that one's good.
I like that one.
Yeah.
They have several internal use cases for it where they can monetize that data. So effectively, they have part numbers spread out throughout different clients, and they don't have any normalized or standardized data. So if they can get to a place, once they get to a place where they can normalize that information, then they've increased their profitability dramatically, because now they can do bulk purchasing power. Right. So again, it's tying it back to a business outcome and business goal. And then the other interesting aspect of that, now that they have good, clean data on millions of records, they can then start selling it back to their clients and in the marketplace as well.
Yeah, no, that's good.
So talk a little bit about what it means for a company to start taking advantage of this. You mentioned other sensory data, and explain that a little bit, like in terms that maybe the rest of us would understand. But
right.
but I've done in my career, I've done a lot of business intelligence and data warehouses and ODSs and data marts and this and that, and all around reporting on the historical data, the transactional data, and financial reporting and things like that. Or maybe if really forward thinking, I once did some segmentation of what we called our customers, or doctors in that case, but those were our customers. So everybody, IT departments are really good at that. Like, we're all really good at setting up our data warehouses, our EDWs, or CDWs, and whatever you want to call it, Ws, right? But when you start when you start thinking about monetizing data, or thinking about these new sources of data and taking advantage of it, what's the big challenges for IT departments today to start doing that? I mean, it's not something I think you just start doing overnight, right? You just don't wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm gonna start taking care of sensor data, right? Or I'm gonna jump on Facebook and pull all the data from there, or Twitter.
I love it.
So what are some of the challenges you see with customers or IT departments today?
So I think one of the biggest challenges I see is it being an IT-driven project, where they'll start building the enterprise data warehouse and bringing in all these sources of information. If they wanted to go after a marketing project, maybe they'll bring it in from Adobe Analytics and their email system and CRM system, just to aggregate it all. So the challenge with that we see is that without a clear understanding of what they're going to do with that data, then it just becomes swamp, like you're talking about earlier.
So that's more IT focused, right, where IT's driving it, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we'd like to flip that, or recommend flipping that a little bit. Really start with that business outcome.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
At the executive level as well, because without the executive buy-in, these projects, some of them can take a long time.
Absolutely.
And the nice thing about it, exactly. Yeah. So we typically recommend start small. Start small with a very laser-focused outcome in mind.
Absolutely.
And only put the pieces into that data warehouse, or wherever that central repository is, that you need to prove it out, to prove out that value.
Right. So you mentioned IT driven. How often do you see where, like, the business, say a CMO or somebody in marketing, or on the sales side or whatever, is actually leading the charge, and IT can't meet the need, or is lagging? How often do you see that, and what is the outcome of those situations? So
I'm starting to see that more and more, especially on the CMO side, where they're really trying to concentrate.
Got lucky.
Yeah, no. Absolutely.
Kind of like what's happening internally, in the US. So.
Because they understand that they have all this data at their disposal, but they aren't being able to make those decisions, about their customers, about where to put their limited marketing dollars, who to target. So typically what will happen is that they'll engage a shadow IT company. They'll go into shadow IT, engage another company.
Nothing about that, Mark.
And then so one of the big challenges there is that, because if there's a disconnect between the IT and the marketing department, then the IT folks have to support it at the end, and usually it's not supportable, because most likely it was just done for...
I won't take that personally.
Well, because it wasn't done with a strategy in mind, with the proper data management strategy. Think of it as a tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely.
Right? So they'll deliver something, very point, because that's what's in their SOW. But there's a lot going on behind, underneath the water, to be able to operationalize that and actually make it usable to the organization itself.
Right. So with that in mind, and knowing that there are these types of challenges, if we spend a lot of time talking with developers, is there any guidance that you would give a developer to, one, kind of identify that either the project they're about to work on, or even just how to identify a project could be tied to a data monetization project? Really, essentially, how can they succeed to help their teams with that? Like, any guidance you might have?
Right. So my advice to developers would be, tie it back to one of those three business outcomes. Increase revenue, improve profits, or boosting effectiveness. There's a fourth one that we haven't really talked about yet, which is the traditional view of data monetization, which is new revenue streams. So if you can tie it back to one of those four, and then more importantly, get a business sponsor, to really understand what some of the assumptions would be going into it, and going through a process where you're validating those assumptions, validating those learnings throughout the process.
Okay, no, that's absolutely. I mean, that's just even great guidance for the stuff that we're working on when we're not sitting here drinking. So that's
When's that, Nick?
yeah. Oh, right. I know.
Yeah, the new business model, or like you had talked about, is interesting because Nick said we're going to talk about this topic, so I wanted to read up on some of this topics around.
You hear that? He reads, people. I didn't know this. This is new.
I try to read.
Big
so
pictures,
lots of pictures, lots of pictures. I usually have my 6-year-old read to me, but but I was reading about new models and or specifically around being able to take advantage of the new business cases or new business models, and companies that can't or are stuck in the rut and won't get out of what they've traditionally done and look at the data they have to take advantage of new business models. And some of the examples that that kept coming up were like PayPal, Google Wallet, even Uber. Because if you think about like Yellow Cab, they could have easily done what Uber did, even easier than what Uber did. And somebody outside of the market comes in and builds a whole new model using data and technology, and has basically put Yellow Cab in serious trouble, right? If you think about a very simple model around taxiing ride shares. And they're hugely successful. So, and it happens everywhere. So, do you have any guidance on people that may be watching this, thinking about new business models and looking at what data is available, what you have? Maybe you mentioned you're more financial, industry focused. Are there things in that area that you could talk about, like how can you look at what data is available to you and think of new models, maybe?
So, traditionally in companies, what we're seeing is they need to evolve their analytical curiosity. So we see that as a very
curiosity. I love that.
That's a good
I
one.
love that.
I'm gonna steal that later.
They have to no patent pending.
No, trademark.
Trademark pending. Yes.
I love that.
So to evolve their analytical curiosity, is one of the big challenges as well, in these organizations. And as they start small with the internal data, they start asking all those questions. How can I do this? And then tying that back into actionable decisions.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
what we see in a lot of companies is they spend 90% of their time in data preparation, and 10% in the actual analytics. And then usually we come in and say, great, we can obviously help you with the data preparation, with our partners Talend and other technologies, for data storage. And you're doing some great analytics, but what are you actually going to do with it?
What are you going to do with it?
So once you start down that path, then I think your question comes into play. How do you understand what's happening in their marketplace?
Right.
How do you look into other data sources, whether it's publicly available information? For instance, in the banking space, you can download information on every bank about how many loans they've done. And who they've lent to, essentially. It's HMDA and CRA. So there's a lot of publicly available information. With that information, for instance, you could tell who's actually a competitor in your space. Who's moving in, who's moving out. So that's just one example of using external sensory information in the marketplace to understand what those trends are. So, for instance, going back to Yellow Book, if they had started to see that trend, then they wouldn't have, they probably would have been in the forefront.
Absolutely.
That's
excellent.
So, I mean, obviously we've been talking about like what it is, how companies can use it, what are the benefits, what are the challenges, how can a developer kind of identify those types of things. One of the interesting things that we were talking about as we were prepping was kind of essentially the new wave of how data is being distributed, which kind of impacts the way data monetization can really impact a business. And it's also a nice tie-in to probably our next episode where we talk about it, but blockchain, right? We've seen it all over the place in terms of companies finding new ways of distributing that data. And certainly, as you mentioned, once an organization has clean, defined, and structured data, they can start packaging it for sale. Makes sense that the next kind of logical conversation would be, well, how are we going to distribute that information? Hence blockchain. So, you had some great insights when we were prepping. So, like, what's your take on blockchain?
So, blockchain obviously has been made famous with Bitcoin.
Yep.
So the underlying technology for Bitcoin. So as companies and industries are determining, how to use it, I think we're going to, find some very, very interesting use cases. So, for instance, we're talking about financial services. One use case might be AML and KYC, anti-money laundering and know your customer.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting things about that is that, that information is relevant to a person. So why can't they just take their information, go from financial institution to financial institution,
right?
And the financial institutions add to the chain.
Yeah.
So the interesting part of being able to monetize that, if you then become the chain owner, where you're cleansing, making sure the data is clean, and helping companies access the chain, and something interesting for Talend as well, being able to access and pull information from the chain. And help those companies out. It's just one example.
Well, no,
blockchain might be good for electronic health record too. Now,
oh, absolutely.
Sitting here thinking about why you guys are talking. Like,
absolutely.
Wow,
so I think anything that's portable, and specifically anything that is for a person that you can port. When we were prepping, we were talking about GDPR.
Yep.
Oh, the favorite topic, GDPR.
Yeah, the global data protection.
We love you, Jean-Michel.
We love you, Jean-Michel, and GDPR.
No, but
So one of the requirements from GDPR, which doesn't seem to be clearly defined, is the transportability of information.
Yes.
So there's no standards yet, but eventually they'll get to a standard where I have my information in a company, and I want to say I'm doing a financial business with a bank. I want to be able to take all my information, just port it right over to another financial institution. Very similar to what you do with a cell phone number.
Yeah.
So it should be, eventually it'll be that easy. Blockchain technology, I think, will enable that.
Well, and you actually, you mentioned something that I'm going to put my flag in the sand and say, this is going to be a standard. This is how blockchain is going to be successful.
There's another standard he's defining.
I know. Well, but I mean, you mentioned it.
Once it's recorded on the internet, it's true, right?
Nick's rules of how business works. No, you hit it dead on, which is even just in terms of the ability to distribute data, the blockchains that are actually going to be the most successful are the ones that, in conjunction with being able to distribute the data, the chain owner themselves also takes responsibility for the cleanliness of the data across the entire chain. Right? And you mentioned parts of that, and as I was thinking about this, it's a whole new way of looking at that ecosystem. Essentially, hey, I mean, obviously garbage in, garbage out, but recognizing that in order for these chains, and really some of the revenue generating potentials with the initial coin offerings comes to how beneficial is the data that exists within the chain. And so having the chain owner take some level of responsibility of saying, yeah, I'm going to make sure this is clean data, I'm going to make sure this is relevant data, I'm going to make sure it's structured data. Now I know that there's some level of, certain industries.
I have to make sure my data is structured?
Yes. Mark, there's a lot we got to talk to you
about. I'd rather be unstructured.
I know, buddy. It's okay. We'll work with you. But no, I mean, I think that's definitely, if we look, I bet you, as this takes off, in 18 months after we really start to see this.
Another prediction.
Yep, this is the prediction. 18 months from when that initial success, I really truly believe the chains that are going to be the most valuable, the ones that are going to be the most profitable, are going to be the ones that have the best data. Right?
Have a complete record.
Yes,
absolutely. Have a complete record from multiple sources that are then validated together.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
by me.
By Mark.
By the user.
We get the Mark Balkenende stamp seal approval.
I meant by the user, Nick.
Right. No, it's okay, guys.
By the owner.
Well, you can definitely be one of the nodes. That's fine.
Very soon on our craft beer and data marketplace, there'll be a Mark Balkenende seal of approval stamp. So all those chains will be ready to go.
That'd be great.
Oh man. So. Dave, this has been just a wonderful. I thank you so much for taking time with us to give us your knowledge in terms of data monetization as well as blockchain. I think this is going to be a great episode for our viewers as well as plenty of people within the company.
It's been great to have an expert, industry expert, come and talk to us about it here in Philly. So thank you very much for sure.
Absolutely.
So for those of you that are following us on our tour, obviously we mentioned Philadelphia this time. The next episode will be in Nashville. We're really looking forward to meeting everyone out there. And
can't wait to go to the honky tonks in Nashville. You'll fit right in with your black shirt.
I will be treated.
Get you a cowboy
I will be treated like a local. I will be the first to admit.
I'll have to bring my plaid shirt from.
I'll bring my cowboy boots and my hat. And we'll go. I'll enjoy it. But for those of you that are, again, we thank you so much for watching this. This has been another episode of Craft Beer and Data. until the next one. Mark, can you,
Dave,
and Dave,
cheers.
yeah?
Cheers.
I figured you knew how to cheers. I got to work with this one, so it's a learning process. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thank you.